Good afternoon and welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgili, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Dr. Keisha David, who is the county's health officer, as well as Dr. James Bridgers, Director of the Department of Health and Human Services. Dr. Earl Sider, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and our special guest today is Mary Travaglini from the Department of Environmental Protection. She is a program manager of the Organic Lawn and Landscape Programs. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And Mr. County Executive, I saw you hydrating. Good afternoon.
I am hydrating. So, thanks for joining us, everybody. This week has been intense. Even the nighttime temperatures haven't brought much relief. I look around outside when the asphalt gets really hot and it rains. I think we'd have to talk about a rain and steam event at this point, because you watch the water fall, hit the ground, and then start evaporating upwards. So we're getting hit by water in both directions some days. I want to remind residents that county buildings like libraries and senior centers are open during regular hours if you need to cool off. We are perfectly fine with people using them as cooling centers. I also want to thank our Department of Recreation for supporting both our summer camps and residents needing air conditioning. Our pools have been busy and the staff has done a great job under tough conditions. I also want to thank our Department of Transportation for handing out free water to bus riders, and nearly 50 people stepped up to help our Animal Services and Adoption Center during their AC repairs. We found temporary homes for the animals that were most affected by the heat, especially those with medical issues. Please watch for signs of heat illness. Cramps, dizziness, or headaches mean it's time to take a break. If someone faints, breathes rapidly, or has a weak pulse, get medical help immediately. Last year, 27 Marylanders died from heat-related illnesses, including a Baltimore City sanitation worker who died on the job. Last fall, the Maryland Department of Labor issued new workplace safety regulations requiring employers to act when the heat index exceeds 90 or 100 degrees. That includes providing water, shade, and breaks, and that applies to everybody. As a reminder, Montgomery County passed a law back in 2020 requiring air conditioning in most rental units that keeps the temperature below 80 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer. Residents should report violations of the law to the Department of Housing and Community Affairs by calling 311. We're monitoring the health of our outdoor workers, and I want to thank all the county employees who are out there doing the critical work they have to do, whether it's rain or shine or snow. Just last Thursday, after wicked storms passed through here, MCDOT received over 170 reports of downed trees and debris, and MCFRS responded to trees falling on homes and cars. Thankfully, no serious injuries were reported. As we move deeper into the summer, I encourage everyone to sign up for Alert Montgomery to stay informed about severe weather and traffic, and get your rec alerts that you can find out when our pools are full, so you know whether to go there or not. And we'll drop the sign-up link in the chat so you can get all these alerts from the rec department. I want to talk a little bit about new laws that are into effect on July 1. There are several new county laws and state laws. In Montgomery County, the minimum wage will rise to $17.65 an hour for businesses with more than 51 employees. It's $16 an hour for businesses between 11 and 50 employees, and it's $15.50 an hour for businesses with 10 or fewer employees. This is important, but I just want to remind people that it is the national minimum wage is stuck at $7.25 an hour. Even $17.65 makes it hard for a person to be able to afford rent in Montgomery County, and even hard for a couple to be able to afford rent. So these aren't particularly high wages, but they're better than the federal standard and better than almost every state. I think D.C. is the only one locally that has a slightly higher wage than we do. This increase is part of a law I sponsored when I was on the council. It ensures wages keep up with inflation, a basic need that the federal government continues to ignore, which is why the national minimum wage is still stuck. Also starting next week, a ban on single-use plastic bags and a new fee on paper bags. Tenants can now sue landlords who ignore serious maintenance problems like mold pests and broken air conditioning. On the state level, new laws take effect next week, including increased penalties for dangerous driving, including the Sergeant Patrick Kep Act that addresses the reckless driving and reckless speeding that we're actually seeing. And Sergeant Kep was the victim of a driver who was driving out of control and actually ran into the officer as he was trying to put down stop strips. You cannot have people doing this, and in this particular individual's case, he used to taunt police officers by speeding at outrageous speeds, knowing the police can't chase him because we don't do high-speed chases because of the risk to people. So taking advantage of the fact that we're trying to protect people allows another person to drive like a maniac is not a good thing, and we're looking at ways to help our enforcement, what we can do with drivers who exceed the speed we're willing to have our police cars go. There are ways to do that. We're expanding speed camera use in road work zones. We're allowing expungement of some criminal records at the state level. There are increases in penalties for organized retail theft and illegal gun sales. There's law requiring insurers to cover hearing aids for adults, make telehealth coverage permanent, protect gender-affirming care, and to offer the GED in Spanish. And there are increases in certain sales taxes, including the tax on vending snacks, IT services, and tobacco and cannabis products. All these are put in place to try to help the state deal with the revenue shortfalls they experienced this year. These changes are important, and I encourage everyone to stay informed about how they're going to be impacted. Also, on July 1st, we begin the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. The use of gas-powered leaf blowers will be illegal in Montgomery County beginning next Tuesday. Last year, we banned their sale. Now this fall, the law goes into full effect. The ban is a step toward cleaner air and quieter neighborhoods. I don't support the amendment being considered by the council to carve out an exemption for landscaping companies. If anybody can afford to pay for an extra battery, it's the large companies that do landscaping. This should not be a barrier to being able to comply with the law. Battery-powered alternatives are now reliable and more affordable. And I want to welcome Mary Ciavaglini from our Department of Environmental Protection, who's here to talk a little bit about our outreach efforts around this change. So, Mary, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. I was asked to give some context of to why I'm in the car. I can guarantee it's hot out there. I spent 4 hours this morning at the yard trim area doing outreach to landscapers, and boy, is it hot when that sun bakes on the asphalt out there. As Mark mentioned, in less than a week, the county's law, which bans the use of backpack, handheld, and walk-behind styles of gas-powered leaf blowers, goes into effect. This law was passed in 2023 and now applies to everyone in the county, landscapers, residents, property owners alike. I wanted to give a little bit of background about the law. While the ban on gas leaf blowers is aimed to reduce harmful noise to landscape workers and residents, there are significant co-benefits for air quality and worker health in the county. Because two-stroke engines, which gas-powered leaf blowers mostly use, only partially burn their oil and gas mixture, the emissions from a gas leaf blower being used for 1 hour is equivalent to the emissions of driving a car from DC to Miami. Not only is that a huge air pollutant, but the user of a leaf blower is breathing in everything from that unspent fuel. Here in Montgomery County, we estimate that close to 10% of our businesses are landscaping, and that suggests they have over 2,300 landscaping companies, with over 6,000 individual landscape workers. I can guarantee you these are some of the hardest working folks in our county. They're working year round to keep our landscapes clean and beautiful. We'd also like to keep their health in good shape. The county does recognize this is a big change for many landscaping companies, and at the Department of Environmental Protection, we're providing educational resources which are available on our website at www.montgomerycountymd.gov/leaf blowers. And we also have a limited rebate program for landscapers, which will also open on July 1st, where smaller landscapers can get up to $1,500 in rebates towards the purchase of electric leaf blowers. We have several landscapers in the county who have been successful using only electric tools for many years, and many have been transitioning over time. So we are very confident that our landscaping community is strong and can adapt and thrive, and we're here to support them. For those who are concerned about submitting a violation to the county, starting July 1st, they will be able to submit these violations. They have two options. One option is under our noise law. We have always had a two-party noise complaint that is an option, but there will be a new form for those who wish to submit a complaint individually. You will need a photograph or short video of evidence of the leaf blower in use along with that complaint. You'll be able to find that on our website, and folks can submit them by checking in with 311 to get the link to that complaint form. And if there's any questions, I am more than happy to take them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary. Members of the media, if you have any questions regarding this particular topic at this time, please raise your hand, or the topics, we'll handle them after the county executive continues. I see Tom Fitzgerald, Fox 5 EC. Good afternoon. You're also in the car.
I'm also in the car. Thank you for doing this. County executive, just a couple of questions on topic. On the leaf blower issue, you had indicated that you were not in support of Councilmember Albornoz's exemption for the leaf blower companies. They've been talking about this for a couple of years, and they say that the costs that they're incurring to buy this equipment has really cut into their bottom line, especially what's been going on with the economy in general. Are you absolutely of mind on this right now, or could you reconsider this?
Look, the price of blowers is going down. I mean, I've had 2 electric blowers over probably the past decade. My second electric blower, far more powerful than my first one, with a battery that lasts far longer than my first one did. And so the technology is evolving and the prices are evolving. And I hate it when people are asking you to put a price on human health. I mean, the health risks from exposure to the fumes are real. And I understand it costs money to keep people safe and to deal with the leaf blowers, but the consequences that somehow a person should suffer negative health impacts because somebody doesn't want to buy a second backup battery, I'm not sure I'm sympathetic.
If I could just follow up on that, on the health concerns, we have heard, and I've spoken with some landscaping companies that said health concern is part of what they don't like about this, because the leaf blower that you and I buy as consumers are different than the equipment that these professional organizations are buying, and they are finding that these higher weight, larger capacity barriers are, they say, causing severe back problems for their workers, and they're losing workers due to injury because of that. Is that an aspect that has to be explored? And is there a period of time where you might examine how this is implemented?
Look, that's something I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And
I hadn't either until they told me about it.
Yeah. Maybe.
If I can, I'd be happy to address that briefly if you'd like.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Okay, I'll have to say I'm not the world's expert on electric leaf blowers, but the technology has been changing and is changing over time, and there is a lot in the way of education about electric leaf blowers in general. While they seem very easy because they're plug and play, literally you stick a battery in and you hit the button, there's no more pull cords, no cranks, no air filter changes, no spark plug changes, things where people had to learn about how to use their gas leaf blowers. They also need to learn a lot about electric leaf blowers and the newer technologies that are out there. I would encourage all these landscapers to speak with experienced dealers about the changes, to speak to manufacturers about the changes, because a lot of these sort of myths that come with it are also things that have been learned in the industry. And as I mentioned, there are landscapers who are very successful with this. It is the way of the industry. Are they heavier? Do they need more batteries? Yes, that is a reality. It is a change. It's a big change. And that's why at DEP, we want to help support with that education as much as possible.
Mary, thank you for that. And just, briefly, this wasn't a myth. They're saying that their guys are getting hurt. If I could just wrap this up with just one more question. There, over the course of the evolution of this, was conversation about incentives, either ability to help people purchase new equipment for themselves. What's available for folks as far as assisting them in replacing these gas-powered leaf blowers?
a rebate program, which we did run last year and we're running again this year. It provides up to $100 for residential customers to be able to buy an electric blower, and then commercial customers, depending on the size of the business, can get upwards of $1,500 in rebates. They are limited. We do encourage people to apply as soon as possible. We expect them to go quickly, but we are providing that as a way of support, and also to, again, turn to dealers to look for incentives they might have as well.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Jeannie Bixby, Bethesda Today. Good afternoon, Jeannie.
Good afternoon, Lorna. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mary. Tom beat me to my first question, but I was going to ask, I know, I've been here since this was originally debated, and I know at the time there was some concerns about the reporting aspect, and the noise ordinance part makes sense enough, but some concern about the people taking photos and videos and specific communities being targeted. Has there been any discussion of addressing that, or any concerns in that regard on your all's end?
So
I am not in the compliance. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark. I don't want to step in.
And then I'll tag on. Or you just going to say?
I was just going to say I'm not in the compliance department, but our compliance department is very professional, and the enforcement is simply on the use, nothing beyond that. Most efforts focus on education first, and then our compliance officers have various levels that they can do of warnings, violations, up to citations. So they are very professional with this. I would say there should be no concern about our compliance officers doing anything beyond simply just enforcing the law.
The other thing I'd add to that is, I would ask people, and maybe this is part of public education, that if you're going to take a picture of somebody using the leaf blower, don't include their face. You don't need to do that. So take a picture of them holding the blower, using the blower, but don't use their face. And I'll talk with folks about making sure that goes out in the public information. Because I do understand people are concerned because it's something to be submitted to the county government, and we don't want faces on it because we don't want somebody asking, show me your leaf blower users.
Gotcha. That was more what I was getting at, not the, I'm sure the compliance officers are doing what they're told, but just wanted to check in on that. Thank you.
I think that's where you were.
Thank you, Jeannie. Justin Lin, Moderate League Moco. Good afternoon, Justin.
Hi, thank you for having me on. Just a quick question. So I know that agricultural producers are currently exempt, but landscaper exemptions are still under discussion. Will small landscapers or agricultural producers on agriculturally zoned land receive permanent exemptions?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Agricultural production in the county is a very specific definition, and we're happy to share the county code. It's fun reading, but agricultural producers are not anybody on an agriculturally zoned property. They are specifically registered through different programs to be agricultural producers, so it's only going to apply to them. It doesn't have to do with agricultural zoning. So the law does apply if a property is agriculturally zoned.
Okay, thank you. And then, what type of benchmarks or metrics are you guys using to evaluate the band's success in reducing noise?
Fewer complaints from people, less letters coming into my mailbox saying, I woke up this morning at, 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning to this loud gas-powered leaf blower in my neighbor's yard. And, I wasn't ready to wake up. So any reduction, I think if we all see a reduction in the amount of complaints we get from people, that would be a measurable change.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Justin. Members of the media, any more questions for Mary Travaglini before she departs? By the way, Mary, you can stay on the call or depart if you need to.
I've got to get into this leaf blower dealer behind me, so I appreciate it. Folks can email me. I believe it's in the briefing, mary.travaglini@montgomerycountymd.gov to ask me specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Bye.
Mr. County Executive.
Back to the world of news. Tomorrow, we're officially opening Allium Place, one of the largest affordable housing projects in county history. It includes 168 rental homes, 24 condos, and 3 single-family homes. along with the future child care center, a half-acre park, and access to free MocoNet internet. I've been working on this project since my first year as county executive, when the planning board did the master plan for Veers Mill Road in that area. The county had some property there, and we made a decision early on to make sure that property got put to use to provide affordable housing, not simply wound up on the market for market rate housing. And so we were able to take advantage of our ownership and to bring in partners. We had brought in AHC, Habitat for Humanity, and the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And just a few weeks ago, we were at an opening of the 3 single-family houses that were built by Habitat for Humanity. So it's a great project, has a mix of ownership and rental, provides deep affordability to people, and I'm just excited that this has actually come about and it's real. And we actually have more projects like this underway. So what we started back then is, continuing today with the work we're doing. So I think I have a really good team in the housing department. We've got good partners with our nonprofits. So I look forward to more of this. So join us tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. in Silver Spring for the ribbon cutting. And maybe somebody should post that address in there, because I don't remember the address offhand. And if somebody looks up Allium Place, they'll never find it. So let's see if we can give them a hand on a direction or an address. I do want to talk about the council passing this very problematic ZTA. I want to take a moment to talk about the zoning text amendment 2502, part of what's called More Housing Now package. Several misnomers there. The stated goal is to create more homes that are affordable to middle-income workers, teachers, police officers, healthcare workers, and others. That would be a good idea. There's no guarantee this bill does that. First of all, this bill, along with other zoning changes working their way through the planning board and council, all contravene what was promised when the council passed the Thrive general plan. That Thrive was merely a broad view of what could be done in the county, but anything specific to areas of the county, any changes would actually go through the master plan process, which means involving the community. The fact is that there has been no master plan process. The planning board refused to use the master plan process, and the council obviously didn't require anybody to go through the master plan process. So communities that were told no changes without going through the master plan have now been surprised to learn that actually there will be changes, and there is no master plan process to go through. Instead of citizens and business members coming together to create plans, citizens have been reduced to a couple of minutes of public comment, as if you can make an argument in 2 or 3 minutes, and the ability to post-it notes in community meetings on the wall, where the planning staff will duly record the notes and then make decisions based on what they want to do anyway. There's no meaningful input at all. We've gone from a citizen-centered planning process to a process where planning staff and the planning board simply impose their vision, a vision held by more than one, that the single-family homes are somehow bad and that the county should be urbanized. The cutting of citizens out of the process was more than a few years in the making. It just didn't happen with this council and with this current iteration of the planning board. It's been going on for a while. But this is the logical conclusion of that process. But we now decide that we're not actually going to do master plan, involve people in changes that are pretty fundamental. Something else that's significant is that the county, in all the other zoning changes that we've done, we've never rezoned an existing neighborhood. We've never gone into a single-family neighborhood and said, actually, we don't want this to be single-family anymore, and encourage people to go in and redevelop the neighborhood. And this is not going to be an easy thing to do, because this relies on every individual homeowner selling their property to a developer, which gets to my point about more housing now. The odds that the thousands of units that are in the corridors, by the way, that were not part of Thrive, and so were decided only by the authors of this legislation, who did not use any planning process to decide what was a corridor or not. All those areas are being rezoned without any input from the community. And we've never done this. We've never done this to a single-family neighborhood. The council has, and the county has, rezoned existing apartment complexes to make them denser and remove some of the low-rise and more affordable units, which I objected to when they tried doing that in Bethesda. But by and large, this has not been a process we've ever gone through neighborhoods for. And the reason we've never gone into neighborhoods is this county has had master plans since the 1960s. And through these master plans, we have planned for the future growth of Montgomery County. Anybody who follows any of this debate about housing ought to be familiar now with the fact that Montgomery County has more than 85,000 units that are unbuilt in our master plans. It means that any developer or property owner in those master plan areas can come forward with already approved zoning to build projects, townhouses, mostly multifamily, and probably some single family, but mostly in the townhouse and multifamily area. But these things are already approved, the master plans are ready, and historically they don't all get built out at once because everybody's not coming here at once. And so you expect them to be built out over time. So you've got 85,000 units that could be built if there's a demand for those units. There are 34,000 units that are in the pipeline. The pipeline is units that have already been approved. In other words, developers already gone through the approval process, and all they have to do to build their units is to pull a building permit. So if there's all this demand for housing, no one, the planning board and everybody, have refused to address why isn't the housing being built that we've zoned for. I think what nobody wants to deal with is it's not being built because we know we're in a lull in jobs in this county that's lasted more than a decade. It goes back about 15 years now, and we have not seen significant job growth. And you're not going to see significant job growth you're not going to see significant housing growth if you don't get job growth, because you don't move to a place and rent a house or buy a house unless you have a job. So the jobs come first, and then people locate to try to get as close to the jobs usually as they can. But we've not been creating the number of jobs that we had hoped for. The planning board and the council of governments has reduced the job projections and the housing projections for Montgomery County, which the planning board and the council doesn't talk about either. I mean, we're just making it up as we go along, as opposed to focusing on what do we need to do. My suggestion, and I see the planning board is doing part of it, is to look at the high-rise zoning, because they probably zoned too much of the county for high-rise. High-rise is not being built because it's too expensive. I've had more than one developer talk to us about it. There have been developers that have come forward and asked the planning board to actually approve them building lower buildings, which they could build, for which there's demand now. But if they're stuck having to build a high-rise, there's not demand for the high-rise. So there's certainly a reason to relook at where we put high-rises in our master plans, and if we put too many high-rises in. And it's also an opportunity to look at the 85,000 unbuilt units that are in the other master plans, and the planning board could look at what they planned there and ask themselves, are those the right housing types? Because if they really believe this is a issue of housing types, and all the other master plans were done based on existing housing types, it seems like an ideal opportunity to look at the things that haven't been built and say, if these aren't the ideal housing types, what would we do with these existing plans to make them more ideal? None of these things are being done. This is basically opening up the county and opening up the neighborhoods to more development. This is a drop in the bucket compared to what's coming down the pike from the planning board, which is the corridor plans, which they just passed the University Boulevard corridor plan, which the residents there are not very happy about. So it is something we're doing that we don't need to do. And if you're not going to address why we're not getting construction and simply say we're just going to add more zoning, if all of this zoning, if you take the unbuilt units and you take the potential units in the master plans, if you've got 120,000 units total that aren't built, that could be built, what makes you think that adding 4,000 more properties to the list is suddenly going to generate building? There's no evidence that it'll do that, and my concern is that to the extent that it does that, this is basically an effort to open up neighborhoods to conversion to townhouses or to other things, and to make them less desirable to single-family homeowners so that they're willing to leave the neighborhoods. It's the only way you would get meaningful change, and if that's what you're out to do, that's not what residents in this county want. And that'll be interesting to see how this plays out. There's also, by the way, no requirement for affordability. So if you took a single-family lot and you choose to build a duplex, and say it's an R60 lot, it's 60 feet wide, you could either build the duplex with two 24-foot wide units on it, And we know from Parking Planning's earlier study that duplexes would go for the same price as what's in the neighborhood, but there's no requirement that either of those units are affordable. If you build a triplex, where you might build three 16-foot wide units, only one of them has to be affordable, but it doesn't have to be deeply affordable. It only has to be workforce affordable. And workforce is defined as incomes up to $172,000. I'm not quite sure who this is serving altogether, but there's no guarantee of affordability. And people will be able to develop these lots into duplexes instead of triplexes and probably make more money with the duplex than they would with the triplex. So there's no guarantee you're going to get affordability. There's certainly no guarantee that any of this is going to happen quickly. Since these are all individually owned, there's very few of these that have one owner with many, many properties. So this is going to require a long time to get units into the market. And I would not want to live on a street if neighborhoods are developed in a hodgepodge kind of way, like one unit now, another unit next year, maybe nothing happens for a couple of years. This is not a path to certainty. There are other ways for us to get there, and we actually need to seriously work on that. So, this ZTA does more than sidesteps the master planning process, which I think is bad enough, but it also throws out planning for infrastructure like schools, roads, stormwater, and sewer capacity. None of these things are being considered in these plans, which are things that are normally considered when you do a master plan. So it's like the infrastructure doesn't matter. How you're going to pay for the infrastructure doesn't matter. It's just like, let's just zone it, and if the housing gets built, oh well, the infrastructure will either be there or not. And I think, residents in the county, and if you talk to folks in Bethesda, they can tell you all the things that were supposed to be in the master plan that never got built, except for the developments themselves. So my concern is we're ignoring, the impacts on the communities. We're not actually going to produce much affordable housing. Our workforce housing program, which this is modeled on, has major problems, and we're proposing changes to the program. In all the years that it's been in existence, there have only been 110 for sale units have ever been created. And most of them are no longer affordable because of the lack of permanent affordability caps. And on the rental side, workforce housing units end up being rented pretty much at market rate. And so before we expand this program, we need to fix it, but no effort was made to fix it. Our Department of Housing and Community Affairs is developing a new plan to integrate workforce affordability into our moderately priced dwelling unit program. Basically, right now, we require affordable housing somewhere around the range of 70 to 80% of AMI, which is in the $80,000 range, or a little bit more than that, depending on family size. It doesn't serve people at the low end. People with incomes below $50,000 cannot get affordable housing. And it doesn't serve people who are trapped between MPDUs and the higher market prices. So there is a need to try to fill the gap between the MPDUs and the market prices, as well as fill the gap below the MPDU prices. And that's what we're going to be sending over to the council. Our housing department's been working with consultants that I think everybody will recognize when the report comes out, to try to come up with a comprehensive view about how we deal with the program. But we need to do something comprehensive rather than this kind of off-the-wall, invented by two people with no involvement from the community. This is not the way planning's ever been done in this county, and we shouldn't start doing it this way now. Finally, we're closing out Pride Month this Sunday with Pride in the Plaza from noon to 8 p.m. in downtown Silver Spring, at a time when the federal government is undermining LGBTQ plus rights and trying to erase history. We're doing the opposite. We're standing up, protecting our LGBTQ plus residents, and embracing their role in our community. I hope to see you there. Now I'll turn this over to our health team for any updates before we take your questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody. I don't have any additional updates. I just do want to remind everybody to stay safe in the heat, stay well hydrated. Don't wait until you are feeling exhausted to get out of the heat, and make sure you're checking in on friends and neighbors and pets. Don't leave them outside too long, and certainly don't leave them in a hot car. Thank you, everybody. I'll turn it over to Dr. Bridgers.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. The only thing I would add is yet another number, our homelessness helpline for those individuals who you may see outside or may be displaced. Please reach out and contact our number. That number again is 240-907-2688. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Stoddard.
I have no additional comments today. We can go ahead and get to questions.
All right, thank you. Doctors, members of the media, any questions related to any topics for the county executive and county officials? Please raise your hands. I see Dana Mundo of the Washington Post. Good afternoon.
Hey, Dana.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to ask Mr. County Exec if you had any thoughts on the buses becoming free and the benefits that we're hoping to see from that.
Well, I put them in the budget, so I must have a thought that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
We're hoping that it's one way of increasing ridership, but we also know that the best way to increase ridership is to increase service frequency and reliability. So we're not just working on making the buses free, but we're also working toward putting in place a bus rapid transit network where we can actually move people more quickly between where they live and where they work. So we've got work to do on two fronts. Money will not, or lack of charging will not solve the transportation alone and, greatly increase ridership. At $1, they weren't that expensive to begin with, so I don't think $1 is a barrier to increasing ridership. But hopefully we do this and we do some of the other things and people really begin to view transportation as more and more the option they want to take rather than a single family vehicle.
Can you elaborate a little on the other things you're hoping to get done with the bus system?
Well, we are in the process of planning out and designing the bus rapid transit routes. So the first one that would probably get done is Veers Mill Road. We've got plans for redoing Route 29, so it's actually seriously a bus rapid transit line, which it is not right now because it runs in mixed traffic, so there's no benefit, necessarily to be on the bus once you get inside of New Hampshire Avenue. We're working on a comprehensive plan for Route 355 because with the amount of development that's planned there, if we do not do something about the transportation there, it's going to be kind of unimaginably tangled up in traffic. Even going back to when the state was trying to get Amazon to come here, one of the things Larry Hogan actually put in his plan for funding was 3 bus rapid transit lines. There were 3 lines that the county had laid out that were needed to provide enough capacity into the areas that were being developed so that the roads didn't get swamped. So we're still facing that same problem. We're driving, development into the White Flint area, the major project at the old White Flint Mall. They've signaled now that they're ready to talk about moving forward. We're going to go forward with a lot of building, and if we don't have the transportation in place to handle the building, it is not going to work well. So we have to get our act together. This council's got to figure out how they're going to fund these things. We've been working, at least at my level, at the state level, to get authority to do what Virginia does. We have a path. We know what we can do to make this happen. We just need cooperation to make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Judy Hurst, the Greater Olney News. Good afternoon, Judy.
Good afternoon. Mr. County Executive, are you hearing from a lot of religious leaders or faith institutions about what's happening in the Middle East this week?
I haven't heard a lot from institutions. I think people are really frustrated. If there's anything to be depressed about, an unending war that leads to, yet another wider war. And I think all of us are looking at the carnage and, the death counts and the misery that's being inflicted. And there doesn't seem to be any actors in this who are willing to come together and resolve this problem. We're really good at providing weapons to people. We're not so good at providing them a path to not have to use those weapons. And it's not just an American problem. It's bigger than us. And we certainly, it's hard not to look at the news and get a little bit despondent over what must be going on over there. Because it's not very pretty and it's not very good for human beings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Members of the media, any more questions for the county executive and county officials this afternoon? No more questions today? Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I guess we're done. We'll see you next time. Stay safe and hydrate. Have a great afternoon.